유관재 목사입니다. 종교개혁 주간을 지나면서 한국교회의 개혁과 변화에 대한 자성의 소리가 많았는데요. 공통된 것은 무엇보다 한국교회의 신뢰 회복이었습니다. 안팎으로 공격을 받는 한국교회를 두고 너나 할 거 없이 한탄만 할 것이 아니라 에스겔서 22장 3절의 말씀에서처럼 이 땅을 위하여 성을 쌓으며 성 무너진 데를 막아서는 한 사람, 우리 자신부터 그 한 사람이 되었으면 좋겠습니다. 4채널 매거진 굿데이, 오늘은 11월 4일 화요일입니다. 지난주 세계보건기구가 에볼라 확산이 심각한 서아프리카 3개국 중 라이베리아의 신규 감염률이 떨어지고 있다고 밝혔습니다. 하지만 아직 위기가 극복된 것은 아니죠. 현지에서 환자를 치료하다 감염이 된 의료진들도 적지 않습니다. 자세한 소식 CBN 뉴스에서 전해드립니다.
The newest Ebola patient in the U.S. recently returned from West Africa, where he treated Ebola patients as a member of Doctors Without Borders. On Thursday, Dr. Craig Spencer was rushed to a designated Ebola center in Manhattan after reporting a fever and diarrhea.
We've been preparing for months for the threat posed by Ebola. We have clear and strong protocols which are being scrupulously followed.
A team of disease detectives are now tracing Spencer's movement since he returned from Africa 1 week ago. Before his diagnosis, he rode the subway, went bowling, and stopped in a restaurant. Health officials have sealed off Spencer's apartment and quarantined his fiancée and 2 friends, but they emphasize that Dr. Spencer was not contagious until he became sick.
I think that the thing to make clear is that the first time that this patient had fever was today, and fever is the typical sign of a person developing contagious Ebola.
Meanwhile, new numbers from the World Health Organization indicate the current Ebola outbreak is the worst ever. At least 4,800 people have already died from the virus, and at least 9,900 cases have been recorded. But the WHO says the true numbers may be 3 times higher. Ebola has hit Liberia the hardest, with 4,600 reported cases and 2,700 deaths. And now news that more than half the treatment beds in the capital are empty. It's an unintended consequence of the government order to cremate all the bodies of Ebola victims. The order runs so contrary to Liberian customs that even more people are keeping their sick loved ones at home and increasing the risk of infection. CBN's Operation Blessing is helping those in quarantine in Liberia. Operation Blessing teams provided more than 2 months' worth of food for this family, lasting them long after their quarantine is lifted. Teams also distributed a chlorine mixture, providing families with hand-washing stations and hospitals with desperately needed disinfectant. Heather Sell, CBN News.
Our senior reporter, George Thomas, left Liberia nearly 3 weeks ago. After leaving the country, he immediately placed himself in a voluntary 21-day isolation. He joins us from that undisclosed location now. George, you're about halfway through your quarantine. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank God. By the grace of God, I have a lot of people, friends and family that are praying for me in the United States and around the world. I've been very, very cautious. It's an isolation. I take the necessary precautions. I'm constantly checking my temperature. But typically, most of the infections have taken place within a week, week and a half of a person coming into contact with another infected person. I am past that. I'm 99.999% sure that I am Ebola-free. But again, as a precaution to protect others, my fellow colleagues, I can't come back to work.
Has this experience helped you identify more with those who are affected by the disease?
Yeah, I realize that in the West we have access, Ephraim, to some of the best technology and medical health system in the world. You just imagine in countries like Sierra Leone, Guinea, Liberia, where the infrastructure is pretty much non-existent. We have families that have decided not to go to hospital, to treatment centers because they'll get turned away. They're full to the brim. So we really have it good. Folks don't realize realize this. We really have it good compared to these three infected countries, and the challenges, Ephraim, the challenges that they face, having to be constantly on guard, wash their hands, again, I'm very, very thankful that I have access in case anything happens.
You were in Liberia with Operation Blessing. Tell us how the church is responding to the crisis.
Operation Blessing and other aid agencies, Doctors Without Borders, Medicine Sans Frontiers, the Red Cross, the various international NGOs, USAID, they're doing fantastic work. I mean, Operation Blessing, they're producing thousands of gallons of chlorinated water every day that will, in essence, help thousands of people stay free. They're going out with teams doing prevention and awareness programs, telling people the effectiveness and the importance of washing your hands, staying away from people that are infected, not to go to funerals, and being very, very cautious. That's all very basic things, but things that will save lives.
George, you brought us an interview with Liberia's president, who is a Christian. How is her faith guiding her through this ordeal?
It's interesting. She is, as you mentioned, a very strong believer. We also interviewed the vice president of the country. Remember, Liberia is traditionally has very strong Christian roots. The churches have been full. They've been jam-packed, Ephraim, since this crisis erupted earlier this year. People have been turning to faith because of the brevity of life. It's again, I've described this as the unseen enemy. Unlike in war, where you can see to some extent your enemy, people are beginning to ask those lifelong questions of what does my life mean, and could I catch Ebola, could it kill me? And these questions, these uncertainties have driven people to churches.
George, thank you so much. A man who certainly does not live in fear. We appreciate your coverage and your time.
우리나라에